Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families.
And I'm Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families. And we are excited to have you join us as we talk all things faith, family, and fitness. A special thanks to Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance Agency for their support of Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community one family at a time.
Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families in West Harrison, Indiana. And I am here with the President of Rock Solid Families, the one and only Merrill Hutchinson.
Don't do that dun-da-da-dun stuff. Last time I did that, you made fun of me because I felt like I had this great entrance of some sort, and I had to live up to it. And so I'm not puffing my chest out this time because you'll tell everybody, why are you pumping your chest out?
Well, honey.
How are you?
Merry Christmas.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Thank the Lord. It's all coming
here.
to what?
This is our last show before Christmas arrives.
Wait, I haven't shopped yet, Linda.
Yeah, well, that never happens. I shouldn't say never. So, but if you're listening to this podcast the week of Christmas, when it's released, Merry Christmas. We're praying for you and your family this week, and really all through the year, we pray for you daily, our listeners, our clients, our partners. So please know that, you are being prayed for, and we take this very seriously. None of this, honey, would be possible without our Heavenly Father, the Lord Jesus Christ, that baby in a manger, the power of the Holy Spirit. And this is about Him, not us, for sure. Yeah,
definitely. We take the opportunity here to spend a little time talking about this season and what it means. On our Strong Dads podcast, we did very much the same type of thing, at least talking about really what the Christmas season is about. But that's not really what we're talking about today, is it?
Yeah.
You're confusing me. Where are we going?
This message, I think, is so important.
Oh, yeah, I get what you're doing now. You're mixing me up.
Well, we are talking about mixed messages and how our words and our actions have to match. If we're going to experience, I sent a lot of Christmas cards out with the word peace and the word joy and the word hope on it. And if we're going to have those things, our words and our actions have to match. So
at the beginning of the show, you were telling me Merry Christmas and all that, and now you're telling me we're not even talking about Christmas. That's a mixed message, Lyndon. So now I'm so confused. I don't even know what we're talking about.
I think we are going to talk about Christmas, but I believe this show is timeless, and it really has a long shelf life because we have a lot of folks that walk in our doors that we know are experiencing a lot of anxiety, a lot of chaos. And can I just tell you out there, if you're listening, there is hope for something better. So please keep listening because I think the Lord has a fresh word for us tonight. And hun, as you and I have talked about this show, this one's a hard one for us.
Yes, it is. This is going to be a challenging one, and it's probably going to be challenging because the mixed messages is something that both you and I have talked about, how we can be guilty, especially with these microphones in front of us, and we do a lot of teaching and trying to help other folks, but then we go back and we live lives just like everybody else.
Sure.
So we have kids and stuff, and we oftentimes find ourselves in a contradiction of what we say versus what might be actually happening sometimes in our house. And not that there's anything drastic or crazy going on, but sometimes there's the conflict within us like, man, I'm having this feeling or this emotion. And I know better. I know better than to let this be part of my thought process. So this is a challenge, and I think probably it's worth us stating that there's some confessions that take place today from you and I, that we're far from perfect in this, but we also know that is what causes even us to have a distress, a lack of peace in our own home, in our own head. And that's why this is a hard show, because we're looking in the mirror. And again, we're not there to try to call people out on all of your wrongdoings, but if you're having a lack of peace or discontent, this could be why.
Right. Yeah. And we've said this before in messages and podcasts that we've done that have been really hard. this is where we do find the grace and mercy of Jesus Christ. We don't lean on our own understanding. We don't lean on our own strengths because it's not enough. It never will be enough. As a matter of fact, we did a show last year about never enough. And
Right.
that was that aha moment for us of realizing that, it isn't about us. It isn't that we are enough, that we ever get this always right. And so if that's what comes across these microphones, then we apologize. That's not our intent, because we definitely are a work in progress and we got a lot of work to do ourselves. So it's a tough one. This is a tough show tonight. But before we get to it.
Oh, yeah, we better say thank you.
Yes.
Otherwise, we'll have more distress in our life. Okay, so we want to say thank you to Maxwell Construction for being one of our sponsors of Rock Solid Radio. Maxwell Construction was founded in 1988 by John Maxwell. And since that time, Maxwell Construction has grown and expanded to become among the most recognized commercial construction companies in the tri-state area. So what separates Maxwell Construction apart from their competition is their emphasis on being a service-oriented company, helping to meet the needs of their customers. So whether it's a school, hospital, restaurant, apartment, or retail center, Maxwell Construction is able to meet your needs. Call Maxwell Construction today at 812-537-2200.
Yeah, and we also want to thank Mansfield Insurance Agency. They have built a reputation in a business built on caring, listening, and protecting their customers. Mansfield Insurance Agency began in 1981 by Jim Mansfield and has been dedicated to the individuals and businesses in Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. So if you have an insurance need, call Mansfield Insurance Agency at 1-800-230-3927.
All right, very good. So a couple other announcements that we just want to bring up to the table. Our fitness classes are still going on, and I would say, Linda, you are losing a lot of weight and looking just awesome.
That's so sweet of
and
you.
So our fitness classes must be working, right?
Well, we have a great time, and we have a lot of folks that are there for mind, body, and spirit, because we work out together and we pray together. We encourage one another. So it's just a great time.
Yes.
But we are going to change our schedule a little bit for the holidays. So if you're listening out there and it is the week of Christmas, we are closed on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and December 26th. And then we will be closed on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So that's just a little bit of a change for us instead of our 6 days a week schedule.
And then we'll get back into the swing of things.
Yeah.
So as you approach
to work off all that
1st
holiday
of
food.
the new year, yes, definitely be thinking about how we can help you out.
Yeah.
Also, just a reminder for our Strong Dads class. So this is for dads, young and old. This is an 8-week session, or 8 weeks, meaning 8 sessions of classes where we talk about being a strong dad, and we incorporate some fitness training with that as well. So we do about 45 minutes of fitness training and 45 minutes of study. And I think above all, we have a lot of good fun in there, a lot of good conversation, and just try to build some camaraderie. So let me know if you're interested. You can reach me at hutch@rocksolidfamilies.org, or any of your needs here for counseling or coaching. You can call us at 812-576-7625.
Yeah, you mentioned, Hun, before, and somebody may be listening for the first time to Rock Solid Radio, but you also do a Strong Dads podcast weekly, and you and Kyle Crawford do that, and it's published on all of the same venues that Rock Solid Radio is, so Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, on our website, Buzzsprout. So all of those things are available with Strong Dads, and you've got some great shows.
You know what I've been hearing, I've heard this a couple of times, of ladies listening to our Strong Dads podcast.
I listen.
Yeah, well, I know you listen. I make you listen to it. No. But no, wives listening to that. And again, I think this is often how some of these things work. The ladies have a bigger heart initially to seeking this stuff out, and then if they like it or think the message is influential in some way, in a positive way, they kind of feed it out to their husband.
You know, Hun, I have one client that is all caught up. He has listened to every Strong Dads podcast you have done. He has listened to every Rock Solid Radio.
That's amazing.
And he's like, "Can you do it more than once a week?" And I was like, "Oh my goodness," because we do 2 shows already a week. So I'm excited that that's an important part of his day and his week. So
well, good.
Really cool.
We just find people, especially in our area, a lot of our folks have at least a 30 30-minute commute to work each day.
Yeah.
And they get tired of the mouth on the radio, and so they like to listen to different podcasts. So I don't know if I want to do it daily.
No.
That would be a lot.
But, I do find myself driving around the block a couple more times because I'm almost done with the show. So it's really cool.
So let's talk a little bit about this today. We at the front of the show, we did talk about the mixed messages. And Christmas, I think this is the reason why, and I'll say that you initially brought this topic up for us to talk about. And as a family, this is directed more towards our family. Christmas oftentimes brings up a time where we can project out some mixed messages because Christmas is the time of Christ and his birth. And so there's a secular part of Christmas where we're celebrating with presents and gifts and parties and that kind of thing. And then there's the more religious and faith-based side where we're actually taking time to think about Christ and what Christ did for our lives and to change the world. Right. And so, Hun, help us out a little bit with some of the mixed messaging that sort of prompted our conversation.
Yeah, so, Christmas is this week. If you're listening, churches around the world really will be packed. Many churches in our area have multiple services on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, to accommodate the influx of families that will come. Lots and lots of families. Working in ministry for 20 years, I was a children's minister and then family minister, and I saw kids getting dressed up in their Sunday best and pushing back the fight from the teenagers about going, and they'd find a Christmas service or Christmas mass somewhere. But then you wouldn't see them again till Easter. And, I worked in ministry and we used to call them Creasters, Christmas and Easter. That's the only time we saw them. And we had a guest preacher, remember this a few months back, who admitted growing up that he was one of those, but he called it a mother Creaster.
Yes, he mixed in Mother's Day.
Yes, he added Mother's Day in there because his mom would drag him, dress him up, take a picture, go to church. And so, we're not here, hon, as you said earlier. We feel conviction too about mixed messages. So we're not here to bash Creasters. So if that's you, please don't turn us off.
No, in fact, we want you there.
We want you. Yeah, we want you listening.
Yeah.
Because all of us out there listening have mixed messages that we send to our children, to our family, to our friends when our words and our actions don't match. And so that's what we're talking about today. And what happens to relationships and what happens to our peace of mind and when what we say and what we do don't align. So
Yeah, and it's so, looking at it from a parent to child perspective, from that relationship, we often talk about this, that we are our kids' biggest heroes. We are their biggest influencers in terms of
good, bad,
teaching,
and ugly.
and everything. And when they're little, they just kind of take it all in, but they get to an age where they start to see and notice, well, you said this, but that's not what you do.
Right.
And you and I have had this conversation because oftentimes we talk about media time, screen time. We talk about, how we spend money. We talk about our faith. And we know now our kids are of the age that they see everything we do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
they're taking notes.
Yeah, they're taking notes. And that definitely makes me feel convicted. Like, okay, I need to really watch what I'm saying here.
Right.
The sorry part is sometimes I feel convicted, but not convicted enough to change. And find myself thinking, well, I'm an adult. I get to do what I want to do, and they're not going to tell me what to do.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Right, and so there's a lot of this mixed messaging that takes place. And so we're going to try to work through some of this today and figure out, okay, what message are we leaving our kids, and what confusion is that causing them as well as us?
Right. I remember years ago, I had a parent's mom and dad who asked to meet with me because they had a daughter who had a mouth. And she was a sarcastic young woman. She was disrespectful. She talked back all the time. And they just sat there with, disbelief, like, what do we do? How do we help? But I had to be honest with them. Like, that's them. They were very disrespectful to each other.
That's how they spoke to each other.
They were very sarcastic. They were very crude. And so their daughter was just listening and modeling what she saw.
Right.
And so if you want that change in your daughter, it has to start with you.
Yeah, I brought this up in our Strong Dads podcast that, when I was a counselor at school, and inevitably I would have kids sent to me for cussing or saying something nasty out on the playground. And it just became part of my script to say, where did you learn that word? And dads, I'm just going to tell you, and moms too, but dads more often than not, you got thrown under the bus so many times where kids would be like, well, that's what my dad says at home, or my dad talks that way. And I'm like, okay. So
well, and we have a lot of families that come in and they're trying to establish a faith foundation, and dad is sleeping in and kissing them goodbye as mom packs them up and takes them in the car. And so, but dad says it's important. Dad says he wants that for you, but that he's not doing that himself. And that is such a mixed message. And it's so hard for mom to combat that, because eventually they're going to get old enough, like a teenage boy, he's just sleeping in right next to dad.
Right.
He's hanging out at home with dad, and he uses dad as the excuse. And so if you want something different for your kids, you have to start doing that at home by the way that you act and live. So maybe you're coming in, or maybe you're experiencing great chaos or anxiety. Maybe you have disconnect with your wife or your kids or your friends. Maybe you're sending some mixed messages.
Yeah. So, we talk about the idea of mean what you say. And so
we haven't said that yet.
No, but we're going to talk about that. And so we're talking about meaning what you say. And so by definition, that means that I know what I mean, that I've thought about it, that the words just didn't rumble out of my mouth, that I have the meaning of what I'm going to say. And I think sometimes things become almost cliche. They become second nature. We just let things run out of our mouth, but we didn't actually think about, do I really believe this?
Right.
Is this how I really live my life? And so meaning what you say is an active process of thinking about and internalizing, that's what I do believe. So that we talk about this like with our faith, the idea of your kids will often mimic or mock exactly what their parents do in terms of during election. Every kid votes, talks around the school about whatever their parents are talking about.
Right.
And the kids have not put meaning behind that yet. But at some point, we're asking people, wait, put some meaning behind that. Have you thought about that? Does that make sense to you? So mean what you say.
Right, yeah. And so, if you're looking at, you say you're a Christian, or you say you go to church, you say you believe in the Bible, but you're not following up with action, you're sending a mixed message to your child. We're not saying you have to be perfect or have it all together, because as we're telling you today, that's not us. But there's got to be some effort. You actually have to have some admission, like when you do mess up, when you do blow it, that you are honest about that. You don't pretend like that's what you meant or that's what you intend. As a youngster, your child may not be able to articulate their confusion or anxiety, but you and I, we have adults walking in our door every week who do. They're coming into us as adults. They're feeling lost. They're feeling confused about who God is or where he is in their life, because the mixed messages, they received growing up.
So let's stop for a second and say, all right, now I'm thinking about what I've been saying, and there's been a conflict in that my words and my actions have not really matched up, and I'm starting to realize that, okay. What's our approach to rectifying that or to getting back on a straight path, especially in front of our kids?
Well, I think the Bible says that let your yes be yes and your no be no. And so if you say yes, if you tell your boss that you're going to finish a project or you're going to stay there late so he can go home, and you don't, your word starts to mean nothing. And so mean what you say. If you are going to make changes, that you actually follow through with that. So you become a person of integrity, and trustworthiness is so important.
But because I may have had a history of not following up, so my pattern, we're always judged by our past, not by our future, right? So my past has been a conflict of message, and so now all of a sudden I make the conscious effort to say I'm going to start thinking about what I say. Initially, that's not going to be bought. right? Because
right.
I've got a history
Sure.
of mixing my messages. And
Right.
so I think it's very important that we encourage our parents and anyone out there that when you recognize that you've been somewhat hypocritical, that there is an ownership of
Sure.
that. You own that.
An
You don't
admission.
just sort of act like maybe
Things have changed.
It'll smooth over and people start to see new you. And we've talked about in many shows, and this is another one of these things. You've got to hit an active reset.
I knew you were going to say reset button.
You have
love
to.
a reset button.
Well, because
I'm going to
it's
get you one
about
of those
fresh
easy
start.
buttons.
You know, this is not easy. This is not easy. You can't do that. This is a hard button.
It's
a reset button. And from the idea of owning it, especially in front of your kids, of apologizing.
Yeah.
You know what, guys? I know now from what I've been thinking about that I tell you to do this, but I'm not always very good at it.
Right.
And so I apologize for that. And I'm letting you know that from today forward, I'm more conscious about it.
I won't be perfect.
No, but I'm going to own
Right.
that so that your kids see that you've made a break.
Sure.
And then that gives you somewhat of a fresh start in their eyes of, okay, Dad's going to try better.
Right.
Dad's going to try better.
Yeah. The same goes in your marriage, hon. This isn't just with parenting. If you say to your husband, I trust your judgment, and then you undermine every decision he makes, you're sending him a mixed message. If you say to your wife, I've forgiven you, but then you keep throwing something back in her face, then you're sending her a mixed message. So which is it? Do you forgive her or not? Or are you holding on to it? So again, you can be a work in progress, but I think you need to be honest and own your feelings. Mean what you say is what the first part of. But I say this phrase all the time, and I actually have premarital couples write it down. Mean what you say, but then, hon, the second part is say what you mean. Because sometimes we put on masks.
We candy coat.
Yes, we don't tell the truth. We need to take the elephant out of the room. We need to take the mask off. Saying what you mean so that you're not fake, walking around pretending. By the way, hon, you know this, the closest people around you, they can sniff out a fake a mile away. They know that something's up, that they know that what you're saying and what you're doing are not matching. But sometimes, and you've told me this before, you can't read their minds. People can't read your mind. And so you've got to say what you mean. And I'll never forget, and I think I've told this story before about Thanksgiving when the boys were little and we were hosting Thanksgiving, and I was trying to clean, I was trying to set the table, I was trying to cook, and the little guys were running around. They were literally hiding under the tablecloth, and
They were hiding from work.
Yes, but they were like ready to pull the china off the table, and you were trying to clean and vacuum and do things that you thought I needed, but I really wanted you just to take the kids.
You wanted us to leave.
I did, but I did not say that. I did not say what I meant, and that was my fault. And finally, after about falling apart crying, I said, can you just take them and go? And you kind of looked at me like, why didn't you just say that? You know? And that was my fault because I did not say what I meant.
Right. And again, there's lots of reasons for that, whether we want to, we don't want to offend somebody or we don't want to cause some uproar of some sort. But I think the more that we trust each other, and that's why this is a bit of a give and take in that relationship. We have to trust each other and trust the heart of each person. And this is always even harder when you don't trust the person that you're with, because then you start to put a slant on what you think they mean when they're saying things and that. So trust is definitely an underpinning of whether this is going to go well or not.
Yeah.
So, not always easy based off of the past and whether you can trust that person.
Right. You know, hon, and this is a great place to interject Matthew 18. We talked about this on our forgiveness show, but Matthew 18 tells us that we need to go to our brother and sister that have wronged us. We've talked about this, we got to speak the truth in love, but we got to do it with gentleness and respect. So we do need to mean what we say and say what we mean.
Right. Very good stuff. Okay. So, let's talk a little bit about some of the challenge, okay, as we come in to try to actually start to align our messages and our actions and put them together. We're trying to get rid of some of the lack of peace, the confusion that's in our mind and in our home. Let's talk about a challenge that we could have
Yeah.
our listeners start even today as they listen to this.
Right. I think you got to do some self-reflection about your words and your actions. Are you honest about your struggles and your questions? For example, your faith. Maybe you don't know where to start. Maybe you feel like your relationship with God is too far gone, or you're just going through the motions, or maybe you've given up altogether. Maybe you're frustrated at the church or a priest or, a family member. For your sake and your family's sake, please don't be a creaster or a mother creaster. Lean
That
into your
nasty.
faith. I know it does, doesn't it? Lean into your faith. Get someone to walk alongside you, helping your words and your actions line up. Hun, this was you and I. I'll never forget when we were baptized back in 1995. Okay,
May 2nd.
And we did not know the Bible. We didn't even own a Bible, and we were invited to a Bible study. And I came up with every excuse in the book to not go to that Bible study because honestly, I didn't even know where to begin.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt so ignorant. And so I was kind of like playing. I was kind of like pretending like I knew, and I didn't. And man, once I just let it out that I didn't know where to begin, there were so many people loving on me, walking alongside me. But it was this pretend game I was doing that was really the most harmful. And I had the most anxiety about it because I just felt like such a hypocrite. We were actually, you and I, remember we were teaching little kids Bible study or Bible school, like first or second grade, and we had actually first and second graders that knew more than we did. I was so embarrassed.
Yeah, again, and that's part of the process and the humbling to say, okay, I need to get this to start to match up. One of the things I want to point out in this challenge, and this can be a knee-jerk reaction by people, is that, we're getting challenge you to do some self-reflection. But this means statements about I. Like, what am I thinking? What am I doing? It's oftentimes easy, especially if somebody else in your home is causing you some conflict and you're starting to look at their mixed messages.
You do this, you do that.
And again, we'd like for them to go through this practice, but you spending your time thinking about what they need to change that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about you working on your own mixed messages.
You could share the show with them.
I'm sure there's some subtle ways to do that. Maybe you should
just put it on Facebook or Instagram or something. Just share it to those that may need this. But, this is really, you're right, hon. It's about us. And it's about what I can do, what I need to change, how my words and my actions are not matching. And that's not just with our faith. What about our family? Think about that for a second. What's one thing, maybe the challenge is one thing that I say, but I don't follow through with, that I can change right now. Your family, by the way, as you mentioned, hon, will maybe slow to believe it. It's almost like you've been doing something so contradicting for so long. Yeah. It's going to take a while. For instance, if you say, hey, guys, we are going to go up for church again this week, they'll be like, what do you mean? We're not going back till Easter. And, no, we need to make a change. 2020 is the year for some change.
Yeah, your family is the hardest one to change in front of because they their memories are much more vivid of your past. Yeah. And, I think there is something to be said about don't give up on that just because you're going to be the one confusing them. If all of a sudden you change and you're saying basically like, hey, I'm going to be more honest with my word and my actions, don't expect them to buy that.
Right.
I mean, this takes time. I talk about it all the time. If you've been somewhat misleading or lying, so to speak, for the last 20 years, the next 2 days does not make you an angel.
Right. Okay. I remember when I started into ministry and really kind of try to clean up my act a little bit of just my personal drinking, that was something that was into my past in high school and college, and going around my high school friends like, what do you mean you're not drinking? What do you mean? And that was really hard because that wasn't who they knew. That's not who I was for 20 years. And so that's something that I can't judge them or condemn them, but that's something I felt convicted on. I had to change.
Right. You're only responsible for yourself in that change. Yeah. So And then at work, the same thing goes at work. At family, those are the hard folks to start to change. But there's those people that you get pretty close to at work.
Sure.
That like, what mixed message do I send there?
Right.
Whether I'm in a leadership role or whether I'm a supporter or follower of the organization. What do I need to do to make sure that I am who I say I am?
Yeah. Can people count on you? Is your word trustworthy? Do you mean what you say and say what you mean? Or are you putting on a mask and a show? If you want peace in your life, one huge way is that your words and your actions have to match. So it's time to do a heart check and make sure that they are. So, if you want to find peace, if you want to have healthy relationships, become the person that can be trusted. Mm-hmm. Be that person of integrity. We tell our kids all the time, and our little one can rattle this off. He knows this definition by heart. What's integrity? Doing the right thing when no one is watching. Mm-hmm. And that's when our words and our actions are matching.
Yeah. So, hey, hopefully as you take some time over this next Christmas week, that you have some time to just reflect upon what kind of messages are you sending? What are you actually living for? What do you actually believe? And what are the words that come out? So putting your messages and your actions in better alignment is just a good place to start as we walk into the new year. So a good time for reflection. All right, with that being said, we better say thank you to our sponsors.
Yeah.
We want to thank Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance Agency for the support that they give Rock Solid Families and Rock Solid Radio. We also want to thank all of our folks that have gotten behind us as we close out this year with our Close the Gap.
There's still time.
Yes.
And we would love to have your support.
Some great support with that. Rock Solid Families is a nonprofit ministry that does a lot of work that really doesn't get billed or anything like that, but that's not what we want to be about. What we want to be about is education and teaching and coaching to get what we think is a fabric-changing message out
Foundation.
there. And so we want to thank all of our sponsors out there. So to our friends and our family and all of you out there, we want to say thank you, and we want to say Merry Christmas to all.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Merry Christmas and have a great day. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. For help or more information about what you've heard on today's show, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or call us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-ROCK. Again, a huge thanks to our sponsors, Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance Agency. If you have questions you'd like answered on our show or you want to chime in on something you heard, go to our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tune in next week for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and for my husband Merrill and I, thanks for tuning in to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time.